Who do you think you are? Some sort of professor? Hello. This video is in response to a Wired video in which a professor answers neurodiversity questions. When I last checked, it had over 1.2 million views. Professor Matt Lerner answers several questions, one of which is, what are the signs of autism? Straight away, he mentions difficulties with communication, language development, speaking in kind of the ways that are expected for a person's development, and then social challenges like coordinating, social interaction, friendship making and connection, eye contact, nonverbal cues, picking up social nuance. That's the social communication side. And then, in the other side, the kind of restricted, repetitive behavior side, you might have somebody who has a really restricted interest or focus. What? Like making YouTube videos about autism. Can an interest in making YouTube videos about autism be called restricted when it involves discussing a range of topics? One of those topics is the neurotypical habit of talking about autistic people as if they're lesser than neurotypical people. Professor Lerner talks about sensory sensitivities, such as a room being too bright. I accept that sensory sensitivities are real and difficult to deal with. If you drop a cup on the floor and I'm not expecting it, the sound of the collision will make my ears and brain hurt. Likewise, when I watch a YouTube video that undermines and infantilizes autistic people, I start twitching. Having said what he said about stimming, Professor Lerner says, autism features fall into two categories, social communication and restricted repetitive behaviors. These include challenges with language, eye contact, social cues, restricted interests, repetition, sensory sensitivities, and stimming, e.g. rocking, flapping. So do autism features fall into two or three categories? Is it possible that autistic people are more than just a bunch of broad categories? Is it possible that autistic people can be defined as individuals? Now I'm going to respond to each of the difficulties and challenges that Professor Lerner listed earlier. Let's see if I can speak about them in a way that is expected for my development as a bitter, monotonous 43-year-old autistic man. And let's see if I can do it without a script. So this is the unscripted part of the video. I'm going to look at the lists of difficulties and challenges that Professor Lerner outlined earlier. The first difficulty he listed was communication, and I argue with this one strongly. So people, maybe you aren't aware, but lots of people are becoming aware of the double empathy problem. And this is a situation where a neurotypical person and an autistic person struggle to communicate with each other because they have different neurotypes. They have different ways of communicating. So the difficulty goes both ways. It's not just about the autistic person not being sufficiently able to communicate. I'm communicating now. I'm using the format of YouTube to communicate. Some autistic people are non-verbal, but they can communicate using a laptop, for example. So, there's not a difficulty there. It's just a different form of communication. I find that neurotypical people sometimes have difficulty communicating what they mean because they use hints and suggestions or implied meanings instead of just saying what they mean. So language development. Now, this is my own autistic perspective. So, I studied English at Cambridge University, which is, a horribly irritating brag, I suppose. But I'm just trying to give an example that I am an autistic person who studied language to an extent, literature. It was a literature degree. So to just dismiss all autistic people as having difficulties with language development, I don't think is correct. So I'm going to quickly challenge that one. Speaking kind of the ways that are expected for a person's development. So what is the gauge? What is the standard? I'm 43 now. Am I speaking as a 43-year-old should? Is this purely about development of language during childhood years? I know that the Wired videos kind of skip through signs of autism, but nonetheless, I'm still miffed about that ambivalent description. What does it mean? What do you mean language? What are the language milestones? You might come back and say, come on, Neil, give the guy a break. It wasn't a deep dive into language development, but it's part of his list of difficulties. And I feel put out because, language development is personally not something that I've struggled with. Arguably, my language development is more advanced, But that's not to say that I speak for all autistic people. As you know, as I keep saying, this is my autistic perspective. So social challenges like coordinating what? Coordinating your way around a room. Um, what do you mean? Social interaction. Again, this is the classic double empathy problem. If I'm in a room of autistic people, I'm probably going to be okay. Because we'll probably connect through shared interests, or maybe not even connect through the shared interest. More the fact that they have a shared interest that they're willing to talk about at length. So where's the difficulty there? Where's the challenge? And I have neurotypical friends, and I'll come back to that. Um, so this all this onus on autistic people being the ones at fault for any challenges within social interaction. But I think neurotypical people need to work harder at meeting autistic people in the middle, friendship making and connection. So as I've just said, I've got neurotypical friends and autistic friends. Um, again, it's just my perspective as an autistic person. This is my autism YouTube channel. But surely there are lots and lots of autistic people out there who are able to make friends and connect with people. Now, you could argue, well, I am arguing that autistic people are more likely to have fewer friends, but, you know, quality is better than quantity, I would say. I have a handful of friends, people that I am deeply loyal to. I connected very strongly with those people, neurotypical and autistic. So, to say, autistic people have challenges making friends and connecting with people, just a blanket statement, I don't think is right to just allow that to go unchallenged. Eye contact, the classic trait of autism, I will never understand this neurotypical fixation with eye contact. If I'm not looking at your face, it purely means that I'm trying to think of what to say. Why do our eyes need to be glued to each other's eyes? I just looked off screen then. Is that a problem? Honestly, eye contact is not a sign of being shifty or, a lack of honesty. Well, for me anyway, and I'm sure for plenty of other autistic people, it's a way to gather our thoughts and then resume the conversation. It's as simple as that. Non-verbal cues. Again, where's the challenge here? Why are neurotypical people relying so much on non-verbal cues to communicate what they want to say? Just say it. Why do I have to interpret so many non-verbal cues to understand what you're trying to say? Why is it my challenge to understand your meaning? Just say it. Use words or type words. Let's establish communication. Let's be really formulaic about it and say, right, how are we going to communicate today? Are we going to use words? Are we going to use gestures, hints, combination of? Maybe we should start doing that, and so then there won't be so much misunderstanding. I know, something to think about or not. And picking up social nuance. When I was watching the video, it reminded me of a time when I really embarrassed myself. I was at this sort of opening of an event, and there were some trustees, so retired people who'd invested their time and probably money into promoting this event, organising this event. And I very stupidly said out loud to my wife, before we were married, a long, long time ago, who cares about the trustees? Very rude. Probably ought to have picked up on the social nuance, the importance of those trustees. It's one of those episodes that pops into my head when I'm least expecting it, and it destroys my confidence for the day. And I've just done it now, so I'll think about it for the rest of the day. So, okay, picking up social nuance. Sometimes, speaking for myself, I've had challenges with that, and the example I referred to a long time ago. But, again, I throw it back to neurotypical people. What about you picking up on the nuance of autistic people? What about you accepting the nuance that autistic people are individuals? They're not just a bunch of traits that you can read in a book and then repeat in a YouTube video. And yes, I know Professor Lerner had a limited amount of time to go through a whole load of questions. I'm just picking on one question from that he answered from a video that was about half an hour long. But I really do think that he could have made a bit more effort, and plenty of other autism professionals could make more effort to humanize autistic people and acknowledge just the sentence, autistic people are individuals. That would mean a lot, rather than just giving this impression to millions of people that autistic people can be reduced to a bunch of traits and reduced even further to stereotypes. It's dehumanizing, it's infantilizing, and you might argue that I'm being a bit harsh, but it's the way I feel, and I think my feelings are valid, and so are yours. So please do share your feelings, your thoughts underneath the video. Email me. What's your take on the Wired video on the signs of autism? I would be fascinated to know. Um, yeah, it's a dialogue, and that's the purpose of my videos. It's a dialogue. I'm sticking up for autistic people. I'm sticking up for myself. You might think I've got something wrong in this video. You might heartily agree. Whatever way you're thinking, let me know. And in the meantime, between now and the next video, take care of yourselves. Bye.